Hello. If you've seen some of my older videos, you know that I call it a double bass ukulele. It's kind of based on ukulele basses, or bass ukuleles rather, that, come from different brands like Kala and other people. But I'm focusing on the acoustic side of the sound of the instrument, and also ensuring that it has the ability to be bowed, like a double bass. This is the first one I made. I've had it for definitely more than a year, probably about a year and a half now. I started doing it during the pandemic, during that summer of 2020. And this is the result. I've explained a little bit in that video, generally how it's constructed, the physics technique that I use to try to get a lower sound. But one of my biggest mistakes with this instrument is that I made the fingerboard straight at a 0-degree angle relative to the angle of the top plate. And this is an issue because the strings are not at an angle close to that. I measured several different stringed instruments, cellos, violins, basses, like viols, relative gambas, and guitars. And I found that when you actually do the measurement, the angle of the string compared to the fingerboard or fretboard is about 3/4 of a degree. And that's pretty consistent among all of these instruments. So that's useful because it means that I can just plug that into a CAD program, figure out exactly what the neck angle should be, and I 3D printed a custom shim that connects the neck to the body at that angle. So as you can see in front of you, I started building a second version. So it has the neck at the correct angle. It also has a slotted headstock rather than regular type. And one thing that this will allow me to do, I already made a prototype of it. This is a prototype version of a part that will allow me to play a low D on this instrument. Or on this instrument, rather. And it wouldn't work as well with this type of headstock. It works better with this type. Something that just bugs me about this type is that you turn in one direction to tighten on this side, but then you turn in the opposite direction to tighten on this side. And that's just On slotted headstocks, you don't have to do that. I also bought tuners on the slotted headstock that allow me to screw in any 3D printed design I want. So instead of these oblong, oval-shaped tuners, I went with circular tuners that have a grip pattern on it. That means that's a little more ergonomic because, say, this happens to be at an awkward angle relative to your hand, you don't have to choose either this or this orientation. because it's all a circle, it's the same in any direction. You're just always doing it from the most comfortable position. So that's nice. This instrument, I did not finish, as in I did not use any wood finish on any of the wood surfaces. I didn't sand it when I was putting this together. So on this instrument, you can see the shiny fingerboard. I'm almost done finishing this. Something else that I did weirdly on this instrument was that I used hot glue to put certain parts together. It's okay as a temporary glue, but I now have some hide glue, which I have already used to connect the fingerboard to the neck. Also, in terms of the fingerboard, with this one, I used an already fretted fretboard, and I turned it upside down. And then I used hot glue to just stick it on, still with the frets on underneath. Whereas with this one, what I've done is I bought a defretted fretboard. Well, first off, I broke it accidentally, and then I glued it back together because I did not feel like waiting to order another part, which could end up broken anyway. Because I had actually ordered two. I can't remember if this is the one that was broken in the mail or the one that I accidentally broke. But two of them had already broken, and I was just done. So I glued this together, and then I used the unfretted fingerboard, and I put strips of paper in where the frets would be, and then I filled that with CA glue, crazy glue. That ends up in basically a strong wood-like material, but it's softer than the wood. And what's also nice is that I made sure to use the type of paper that is very bright white, the type that has additives put in, so that it fluoresces under UV light. So if I shine a UV flashlight on the side of this, you can see the fret markers glow, which is cool. And because I'm filling in where the frets were, and then you can still see it from the side. When you're playing it, you can look and see the fret markers, but from the front, where an audience would presumably be looking at this, you can't see the fret markers, which is nice. So something I also want to do is make holes in the soundboard of this. As you can see, this doesn't have any holes, and while it's pretty loud, I think adding the holes should make it louder, and I've precisely designed based on math and stuff, based on the ideal Helmholtz resonator. I have figured out what size the hole should be, and if my math ends up wrong, I can adjust the frequency by making the holes larger or making the holes into ports. So adding in cylinders, hollow cylinders. I would probably use the boba tea straws. Hollow cylinders to make the depth of the hole larger, thereby increasing the volume of air that has to move as the resonator is letting air in and out, therefore lowering the pitch of the resonator. That's actually a technique that's used in a certain type of guitar. It's called a tournevis. You don't see it very often, but I think every once in a while there's some guitar company that will produce some version of the idea. I have tape here so that I could mark off the center line of the instrument and mark off where the bridge should be. And I plan on, instead of doing what I did here, which is where I have the strings go into holes on the end of the body and then poke out and then wrap around, Instead, I actually plan on using a tailpiece. So I'm going to have an end pin, which I grabbed this out of old guitar, an end pin type thing that I'll screw in, and I really hope that this will be able to withstand the, I think it might have been 65 pounds of tension force on this. I don't remember how many newtons it is. I also have the center line marked so that I can put in the little thing that lets the tail gut keep from pushing into the top plate. So just the thing that protects the top plate. I'm thinking of either using something like this or like a little scrap piece of wood that I might use to test it. You've probably noticed by now the camera is fixed to the headstock of this new instrument. I mentioned the sound hole thing because that's a fairly destructive process, putting in the sound holes. I'm going to test it on this first. And this is like the big thing that has kind of delayed this project because I've bought all the parts, I've spent the time finishing the fingerboard when I didn't have to do this before finishing the body. But now comes the part where I have to poke holes in the thing that I've made. In addition to the fret markers, I'm also going to put dots on to mark some of the more important frets. As you can see, possibly, I've done that on here. I did it according to harmonics. Only 3 dots. But I might do a different scheme. I've seen like double basses and cellos, and I think they usually do it with harmonics, but with more. I think it's something like, half of the string, a third, a quarter, and then a sixth. It's so hard to do that. All right. I just remembered one other thing. For the tailpiece, even this, which I think is a 1/8 violin tailpiece, it's so cute. Even this is too long because of how close the bridge is to the end of this instrument. I'll need to make a shorter tailpiece, and I plan on 3D printing one because, that's an easy way to manufacture these items. And what's very nice, I wasn't sure if 3D prints could take the amount of force pulling on a tailpiece. But I've seen the modular fiddle project, and that uses a 3D printed tailpiece. And it works fine. And I'm pretty sure it keeps intonation well too. It should work for this. I have an Excel spreadsheet that used the weight of the strings, and then the length of the strings, and then figuring out the scale length, and blah blah blah, the math for figuring out the tension on each string. I guess you might, because everybody asks, oh, what strings are you using? I plan on using these flat wound strings, but the strings that I am using on this bass are these strings. So you can stop asking. I don't mean to say that in a angry way. It's cool. You can ask, but these are those strings. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything. Bye.